Hello guys, welcome to the Parson series, and this is the last and final part of your chapter number 6, that is part 8. A very small part was left in the chapter number 6, so first we are going to finish that and then we'll be starting the new one. So we had already done the various materials of the lens types. Now we will be seeing the various kind of lens that are available. So let's see the lens types. So we have got mainly three kind of lenses. We have got bifocals, we have got trifocals, and we have got multifocals. Now as the word say, bi means two, tri means three, and multi means many. So go with the word only. So if you have got two optical corrections, then that is your bifocal. If you have three optical corrections available in that lens, then that will be trifocal. And if you have multiple optical corrections available in that particular lens, then that will be multifocal, right? Okay, now let's see the most common use. So they are saying that the most common use of a bifocal is for presbyopes who need assistance both for the close work and the distance vision. I think this is the most common use, and every one of us know, because every time we see a person who is more than 40 or 45 years of age, they are the people who actually find difficulty in having and doing the near work. So they are using these bifocal lenses. One is your distance correction and another is your near correction. So distance correction, if you remember, that will be in the above part and below one. If I draw it, so if this is the kind of spectacle that is available, okay, something like this. So usually you have got two ones. So one is near correction, something like this, and this is your distance correction. So the upper one is for the distance and the lower one is for the near, because when you are doing the near work, you are supposed to look down. That is why always it is something like this. And this part which is present, this is called as a seam. So this seam means that you have got difference in the refractive errors in the lens type. And the shape, if I talk about the near addition shape, that can be different. We can have like this that I have drawn, semi circular type, otherwise I can have half and half also. The point is that this seam should pass through the pupillary axis. That is the main thing. Shape does not matter there. Alright, so the upper part of the lens is used to correct the distance vision, and the lower half in the reading between the two parts is a distinctive line. So that is very, very important, because many a times when they are giving you the picture of the spectacles and they are asking you to identify, like the one that we shared in the AIMS, if you remember, they had given whether it is the bifocals for aphakia, bifocals for pediatric aphakia, bifocal for the presbyopia. So whenever you are getting that distinctive line or seam, that always shows that you are using more than one, or you are using the different power in the same spectacles. So that shows that it is a kind of bifocal or trifocal. Okay. Now, coming to the trifocals. In the trifocals, we have got upper, middle and the lower part. So the upper part contains the distance correction, like that was available in the bifocal also. Then the lower part for the near. So these two things are same. I have got a additional thing here, that is your strip for the intermediate vision. It is interposed between the two depending upon the patient's visual requirement. So in between the distance correction and the near correction, we give that intermediate strip. Now how wide is this intermediate strip will depend upon the individual's requirement. Alright, if any of these is recommended, patient could be warned that they may experience some initial difficulty in moving about, particularly going downstairs, since vision through the reading portion of the lenses will be blurred and prismatic effect cause the apparent vertical displacement of the objects. Now uh, there is always a great deal of time that the patient takes to acclimatize and get accustomed to the spectacles. You may be hearing your parents and grandparents saying that initially when they start using this near spectacles, they are not very comfortable and they even resist that we see better without the spectacles. This is because it takes certain time to get accustomed to the newly spectacles. So there is some problem, and especially if I talk about these trifocals, they have to acclimatize to different kind of power, the distance also, the near also, and then the intermediate also, and that is why they have a problem when they are doing like climbing and going on the stairs. They will be feeling blurred because all the time when they are doing one particular work, they have got two more lens power. Moreover, whenever they are seeing at a distant object, what is happening, they are looking through the periphery. So when they are looking through the periphery, the prismatic effects are even more. So these prismatic effects are bound to cause even more aberrations. So it's not, a surprising fact that you are giving a person a bifocal or a trifocal, and instead of being happy, he or she is coming with a lot of problems. So you have to keep patience, and you have to ask the patient also to keep patience, and it will take certain, a couple of weeks at least, that the patient becomes comfortable too. Then we come to the multifocal. Now multifocal may you have got a very focal or progressive additional lenses having no distracting lines between the different prescription areas. The important thing is that there is a no distinctive line. Now some people want that we require the same kind of a vision that we naturally have. We do not want just two visions, one for the distance, one for the near, or just three one, near normal one. So they can be given these multifocal lenses where you do not have the distinctive lines, and the power is keeping on changing in a progressive manner from the top to the bottom, and obviously the topmost area will be for the distance vision and the bottommost area will be for the near vision, and in between the areas that you are having is for the intermediate vision, but a wide variety of range will be there. They consist of a large number of curves which are graduated vertically down a central corridor and are blended at the sides. So the multifocal lenses are giving clear vision at all the distances, from the distance vision at the top through the intermediate vision for the closer objects and to the near vision at the bottom. They are particularly useful for the computer work, very very good for the computer work, available in high index plastic, glass and polycarbonate material. So if somebody is asking you that what is good for the computer work, if somebody comes to you who is full-time computer operator, has to work a lot over the sets, then this is the kind of lenses that you are going to provide, and you have got a lot of range. It's available in high index, one, plastic, glass, polycarbonate materials. So according to the affordability and individual choice, the person can identify his or her pick. Okay. Then something which is very very fancy and everybody has a lot of curiosity about it is the sunglasses. And the important thing is that everybody uses sunglasses, every age person uses sunglasses. So I think some amount of even a common knowledge or a general knowledge that you say should be available to all, because quite sometimes we are not picking the right one which is made for us. So in high illumination situations, whenever we are having the brightly sunny days, particularly in the areas where there is excessive light reflected from the surfaces, especially when we are going to the high altitudes where you expect a lot of snowfall, and you know that light is reflecting so much from these snow surfaces, at that place particularly we do require the sunglasses. This will allow the better visual function by reducing the glare, improving the color contrast and the contrast sensitivity. So if you see the keywords, the three keywords are the glare, the color contrast and the contrast sensitivity. So you see, when you are learning from this Parsons series, you should know what are the picking words. Sometimes you have a concept to pick, and sometimes you have the words to pick. So three words are the glare, color contrast and contrast sensitivity, because in future when they are going to increase the number of questions from 10 to 60, these kind of questions are there which can be picked word to word from the Parsons. Okay. Sunglasses either can be plain glasses, or it could be made with a refractive correction for use. In addition to the absorbing a major portion of the incident ambient light, they also absorb most of the harmful ultraviolet radiations, and they are preventing the light induced damage to the lens and the retina. So one important thing is that we have got two options available, like we can give the plain without power, the plain one also, sunglasses, but some people who are having the refractive error also, so they can't afford to use only the plain glasses because they have ametropia. So that time we can also introduce the refractive power in the spectacle itself. Then another advantage is it is also absorbing the ultraviolet radiations, especially the harmful part, which is otherwise going to be absorbed by the lens in the retina, and that will cause the light-induced damage. All right. Now, a very, very important thing, and that is the contact lenses. You know, history reveals that there are so many questions which have been asked in the contact lenses, and we have discussed them in the classes also. So let's revise them in cases of irregular. So see, if you remember, I told you that the contact lenses are of therapeutic use. This question has been asked many times. So there are two important things. One is your irregular corneal astigmatism, and second is your high myopia. There is great improvement of the vision that is occurring when a suitably curved meniscus is in actual opposition to the cornea. Contact lenses are thin optical corrective lenses worn on the eye. They are resting on the surface of the cornea. If you remember, we have discussed a whole lot of information about contact lenses in the video. I have shared contact lens video separately, so you can go through that video also if you have not seen it yet. Okay, as the optical aids, they undoubtedly form the theoretically ideal correction for ametropia, and they are free from many of the disadvantages. So obviously there are so many limitations of the spectacles, and that is why there was a need to make this contact lenses. Otherwise we had spectacles. So with the usage of the contact lenses, we can actually skip all these aberrations, all these limitations of the spectacles, though it may not be the final one and we may have to go for the surgeries also. But yes, it's an important bridge over situation where if you don't feel comfortable with the spectacles and if you are not interested in going for the surgery, you can use them. The prismatic so for the first important thing is that the prismatic effects of the spectacles are eliminated. The field of vision, which is largely restricted in case of the spectacles, so that field of vision is also greatly increased. Then especially they are of very, very high importance in the high errors of refraction, especially the myopia or aphakia. So contact lenses, if you remember, I told you they are actually important where you are expecting high degree of anisometropia, difference in the refractive power between the two eyes. It can be with respect to myopia also, it can be with respect to the hypermetropia also. So whenever you are expecting that amount of high refractive error, like it can be high myopia or it can be high hypermetropia. High hypermetropia you are getting in cases of aphakia. So in those conditions actually we can expect the problems related to anisometropia causing anisoconia. Do you remember what was anisometropia? High amount of difference between the refractive error of two eyes, and that is leading to the difference in the image size. That was your anisoconia. So that is going to create a problem. Therefore contact lenses can be used in high myopia as well as high hypermetropia. Moreover, they reflect in maintaining the size. So that is what I was telling you, in maintaining the size of the image approximately equivalent to the emmetropic eye, not very much difference that you get in cases of the spectacles, makes the useful in cases of anisometropia, in which the refractions of two eyes are widely different, and hence the image sizes are also different. That is your anisoconia. So if you remember, we have discussed this in the classes, and these two terms are again important, and therefore the contact lenses are of very high yielding use in cases of anisometropia. Another specific advantages of these lenses are that they are eliminating the high errors of astigmatism like keratoconus. So they are of very high yielding importance in cases of irregular astigmatism, in cases of high myopia, in cases of aphakia. But usually we do not talk about the aphakia because there the PCIOL is the best one. If resting on the sclera, they must fit with great accuracy, but lenses resting on the cornea are easy to fit and wear. So they are having greater accuracy if they are fitted over the sclera, but it's not that convenient, and usually we use those contact lenses that are fitting on the cornea. Okay. Now one important disadvantage of the contact lens, because you know after the era of contact lenses now we are having the surgeries also. So obviously there were certain problems that we faced with the contact lenses, and that is why now we are shifting towards the phase of the surgeries. So these contact lenses cannot be tolerated in all the cases. That's a biggest problem. The tolerance is a large problem. Their fitting must be appropriate and perseverance is necessary. So the problem is of tolerance, problem is with the fitting, accuracy, then their insertion, their removal, Then we require special care for the contact lenses, like we have discussed that there are so many infections that can occur with the contact lenses, the most common being the pseudomonas, acanthamoeba keratitis. Then we have a lot of things that you have to take care regarding the contact lens hygiene, because if you are using it recklessly, if you are not taking the proper care, more than good, it can cause harm. So you have to be very, very careful regarding the infection in the contact lenses, allergy, hypoxias. So I will say again, three pickup words are very, very important here. One is your infection, then is your allergy, and then is your hypoxia. So these three terms are again very, very important. The greatest incidence of microbial keratitis in patients wearing soft contact lenses of high water content on extended wear basis. Again, a very, very important thing. This is again a question which has been asked so many times, that the greatest risk of the infection is with which contact lenses? It is actually the soft contact lenses. Why, ma'am? Because it is having the highest amount of hydration. So tolerance is not a problem here, but the problem is that due to high moisture content, it can be infected. Inappropriate steroid therapy. Inappropriate steroid therapy in such cases is extremely, extremely dangerous. Then what are the fixed types of contact lenses? So if you talk about the contact lenses, we have hard contact lenses, soft contact lenses, and we have rigid gas permeable type. So mainly three types. Okay. Now, if I talk about the properties of different type of contact lenses, let's start with the hard one. So hard contact lenses, they are made up of polymethyl methacrylate. This you already know. And why they are hard? They are hard because they do not allow enough oxygen to reach the eye. That is a problem, and that is why they are called as hard, right? And patients find it's difficult to adapt to them, so there is a problem of tolerance. However, visual clarity is good. They can be used in the astigmatic corneas. Now, always remember that pros and cons always go together. Hard contact lenses are hard. They are not having that good oxygen permeability. They are made up of pharma. Then why we are so interested in hard contact lenses? We have got rigid contact lenses. We have got soft contact lenses. Why we are continuing the use? The thing is that it has got good refractive power. So if I talk about the hard contact lenses in terms of the refractive surface, it's very, very good. If I talk about the oxygen permeability, it's very bad. That is why we made something in between, that is your semi-soft. They are associated with also less acute infective conditions. Indications are now restricted. Now because of the low moisture content, it is going opposite. Soft contact lenses were having the maximum chances of infection. These are having minimum chances of infection because of the low hydration content. Alright, now coming to the next one, that is your soft contact lenses. They are made up of gel-like plastic hydroxyethyl methacrylate that contains 79% water. So 79, almost 80%. So 80% water is something. So you have got a lot of hydration. There is no problem in the tolerance. But again, infection is a problem. They offer better initial comfort. So better initial comfort is there, but prone to deposits, difficult to keep it clean, and that can lead to discomfort in the long term. Therefore, they are now used as disposables. They are discarded every day, weekly and monthly. So that I told you that nowadays we are actually preferring the disposable ones, weekly disposables, monthly disposables, and daily disposables are even there. Daily disposables are designed to be worn for just one day, up to 15 hours. One day does not mean 24 hours here in cases of contact lenses. One day means just daytime. So up to 15 hours, that is again important. Now weekly or monthly disposable programs allow for the use of soft contact lenses on a daily basis with the necessity to clean them vigorously and rigorously every day. So those who are using the weekly disposable or the monthly disposable does not mean that they did not have a need to clean them. So even though you are using them monthly or weekly, you have to clean them every day very, very carefully. Okay. However, they are discarded. They should be discarded before excessive deposits make them unsuitable, and you have to be in meticulous record that even if like they are monthly, but you are finding that there are a lot of deposits, so even before the deposits you should actually discard them. Continuous wear lenses have an increased water content. Then you have got the continuous wear lenses. There are certain lenses that you can wear continuously. They have been given with more water content, with more of the oxygen permeability and allows up to 6 times more oxygen to the cornea than the ordinary soft contact lenses. So another important thing is your 6 times. This is providing you 6 times more oxygen to the cornea. So obviously better tolerance, but more and more chances of infection. They can be worn continuously up to how many hours? Up to 30 nights and days, but are associated with higher risk of infection compared to the ordinary lenses. So ordinary lenses mein there is a problem that of deposits. You cannot use them continuously. You have to replace them. You have to wash them. But in cases of this continuously wear lenses, you have got high oxygen content, you have got high water content. So there is not a problem of tolerance. 30 days and nights continuously we are using it. But again here there is a more chance of infection. Okay. Then the third kind of lenses that we have is the oxygen permeable or the rigid gas permeable lenses. Oxygen permeable or the rigid gas permeable lenses. Now these are made up of a firm durable plastic that is actually transmitting the oxygen. So this is actually expected to give something, best of both the worlds combined. This is actually a copolymer of PAMA and silicon and cellulose acetate butyrate. So you can be asked the constituents. We have a copolymer, here we have PAMA, we have got silicon, and also we have got the cap, cellulose acetate butyrate, that is cap. As they do not contain water, they are actually resisting the deposits. They are less likely than the soft contact lenses to harbor the bacteria. So they are not having those disadvantages of the soft contact lenses because we have given it as a copolymer. It is less of water content, less likely to get deposits, less likely to get infection, and they are easy to clean and disinfect, do not dehydrate, they are lasting longer, the rigidity. Now they are semi-rigid. Okay, so if I talk about the rigidity of oxygen permeable lenses also means that they are easy to handle than the soft contact lenses, and because they are retaining their shape, they are also providing the sharper vision. Now why the soft contact lenses were not providing the sharper vision? The reason was that this is actually they were taking the shape of the cornea, so that is why they were not giving you the sharper vision. Harder contact lenses were maintaining their own shape, so they were very good. But if you look at the semi soft contact lenses or the rigid contact lenses, they are retaining their shape up to a limit, and that is why they are giving you the sharper vision. So see, this is your rigid one, the rigid contact lens insertion by the patient. So they have tried to show you how we are doing it. So the upper lid is retracted, and we have also tried to pull this one because you require the exposed cornea in order to give the contact lenses over it. The patient gaze is always directed downwards and the lens is carried to the eye by the index finger of the right hand. So we are putting it like this, the convex side below and the concave side above. Now that is also very important. It should not be like turned upside down. So you have to put it like this, and both eyes open. You have to go with your index finger. Which finger is used? That is your index finger. All right. So finally, something about the contact lens fitting. Now though contact lens fitting exactly does not come to our domain, there are separate courses also which are being available in the industry, and these people are doing these special courses, the contact lens courses. This is one field that even a person who is not MBBS can go for, just because it is related to making of contact lenses, the trial and fitting. Also the prosthetic eyes are also included in that. But because the people who are coming for the contact lenses, they are usually visiting the ophthalmology clinic, so it is like associated. So these people are taking a chamber or a shop, or we are letting them sit so that we can help our patients taking this contact lenses. Okay, so the fitting of contact lenses actually requires a prior retinoscopy followed by keratometry to measure the anterior curvature of the cornea. Now again, the procedures that are required as a prerequisite for the contact lenses, they also require the ophthalmology people. So that is why mostly they are with the ophthalmology people integrated there, associated also. So these are requiring the retinoscopy, because you should know the refractive power, you should also know the curvature of the cornea. So keratometry, okay, as contact lenses have to be fitting on the corneal surface, and you know that the anterior surface of the cornea is the most important refractive surface. Now if the lenses are too flat or too steep, if the lenses are too flat or too steep, they will be uncomfortable and they can damage the cornea. Why it is important to know the curvature of the cornea? Because if you are giving the lenses which is not in accordance with the shape of the cornea, either they are too flat or they are too steep, they are going to cause problem. The tear film in the cornea, the tear film and the cornea, then you have to do the general examination also. That is done with the help of a biomicroscope for a baseline assessment to rule out any pathological conditions, because there you should not give the contact lenses, like we have got dry eye, blepharitis, pre-existing keratopathy. So again I can say that you can get a question from here, what are the prerequisites? Okay, so what are the prerequisites in terms of the contact lens fitting? There are certain prerequisites that I require. One is your retinoscopy, second is your keratometry, and third is the biomicroscopy. So again, all except MCQ thing can be there. Then the trial lenses. So the trial lenses are then applied to the cornea. Okay, and when you are applying these trial lenses, you have to evaluate what is the kind of fitting, what is the tolerance. It is evaluated at the slit lamp. Dry eyes, if the person is having dry eyes such as the fluorescein that highlight the tear film, they are useful in fitting the rigid lenses. Ideal fit should show a minimal uniform film behind the contact lens. So how will you actually access it? So you have to assess it that if it's an ideal fit, then it should actually show a minimum uniform film behind the contact lenses. And means if you are checking what is the kind of fitting that the person will have, we usually call the person one day prior or a week prior for the fitting. So there you should not have the pooling of the dye, because if you are having so much of pooling, that means it's very steep, and if there is no dye, that means it's very flat. So we have to actually assess the kind of fit the person is having with that contact lenses, the movement of the lenses with each blink. Then another important thing that you have to evaluate is the movement of the lenses. Movement of the lenses with each blink is also evaluated, and it should not exceed 1 mm, as a very mobile contact lenses may also lead to variable and distorted vision. So again, an important thing, how much should be the maximum movement that is actually permissible with the contact lenses. If the lenses does not move at all, that means the fit is very tight, and you have to give certain amount of movement possibility, otherwise it is going to restrict the oxygen permeability. Sometimes the lenses appear to fit fine when the first applied, but can tighten up after several hours of wear. So you have to check it several times. Okay, checking the fit several times is important to ensure that there are no adverse effects on the cornea. Keep on checking it, because sometimes you are not getting any problem in the starting, but afterwards it starts showing that. Visual acuity is assessed through the contact lenses. Their power has to be checked. The most important thing, the purpose for which the contact lenses were being provided was your refractive power. Is that okay? Okay. Then the duration of wear and understanding of the proper care of the contact lenses, that is again very important. The final contact lens prescription should include the contact lens material, power, base curve, and diameter. So again, an important thing, what are the things that you need to prescribe when you are giving the contact lenses? You should see for the lens material also, the power also, the base curve also, as well as the diameter. Patients and contact lenses need to be examined regularly to avoid the problems such as allergy, infections, and protein deposits on the lenses. Then especially if the person is having allergy, you need to examine the person again and again, because these kind of people will have the protein deposits. They will show the rejection also of the contact lenses. They are expected to have more and more problems. Then coming to the refractive surgery. So I told you that because there are certain problems with the contact lenses, so we are going with the refractive surgeries also. So over the years, several different kind of refractive surgeries have been devised to correct the refractive errors who want to avoid the use of contact lenses and glasses. And I think this number is greatly increasing nowadays, because nobody wants to wear the spectacles, and the contact lenses even is becoming a problem because of the tolerance. And That is why I even recorded a separate video on the refractive surgeries also. So please do look that also. Okay, the need for the optical aids can be reduced or eliminated by various means. By modifying the curvature of the cornea, we can change the intrinsic refractive status, we can give refractive IOLs, we can do the phakic extraction, removing the natural crystalline lens. Okay, then we are replacing the IOL of a suitable power. Some have fallen into the disrepute due to the unpredictable results. We have got high rate of complications. Others are used because of newer technology. So again, I can say that both the pros and cons goes hand in hand. For some people it appears as a boon, and for some people it has been known for the complicating the life, and there are a lot of complications, so it depends. um, Talking about the names, the refractive keratoplasty, it has been introduced to modify the refractive power of the cornea itself. So this is keratoplasty. Now these refractive procedures can be done over two things. We can do it on cornea and we can do it on lens as well, because both of them are giving the refractive power, both of them are providing the refractive surface. So these refractive surgeries we can do for the cornea as well as lens also. This may be done. Now see, in detail we have dealt in the separate video. Just a glimpse, radial keratotomy. So radial, they are giving you radial incisions, and keratotomy means over the cornea. So see, you have got the definition, radial incisions in the cornea. The next is your arcuate keratotomy. So now arcuate means arc like. So here we are having arc shaped incisions, they are made, and they are steeper. What you are doing, these incisions you are giving in those meridians which are more steep, okay, in order to correct the astigmatism. Then we also have what you called as the keratomiliosis, in which the tissue is resected and modified before the replacement. So keratomiliosis means first you are modifying the tissue, and then you are replacing. Epikeratophakia, where the donor cornea tissue is attached to the host cornea after the removal of the epithelium. So see, epi means above, so that is epithelium, kerato means cornea, and phakia. So what you are doing, you are actually uh, what you called as donor cornea is attached to the host cornea. So what you are doing is you are removing that corneal button kind of a thing. You are removing the epithelium. So whatever recipient cornea is left, you are attaching the donor cornea over that only. That is called as the epikeratophobia. Keratomiliosis have been redesigned so that a superficial lamella of the tissue is removed from the recipient cornea. So when you are actually doing the ablation from the stromal bed, okay, then the original lamella is then swing back. We can actually modify the actual curvature of the cornea in cases of keratomiliosis, where what you were doing, you are first removing a flap, then you are doing modification, and then you are putting it back. Okay. This method avoids the need of freezing the corneal tissue and gives immediate and excellent equity. The excimer laser. So what is the laser that you are using for the refractive surgery? That is your excimer laser. This question has been asked again, has now supplanted all these methods as it modifies the shape of the cornea with great accuracy and without the inflammatory reaction. So all these like radial keratotomy, arcuate keratotomy, keratomiliosis, all these things are now less commonly used with the advent of the LASIK, where you are using the excimer laser. Okay, excimer laser refractive surgeries are of two types. So let's see what are they. We have got a photorefractive keratectomy. Photorefractive keratectomy. Keratectomy means you are doing the resection of the cornea. So what we are doing here, the surface of the cornea is ablated by the laser, leading to a flatter cornea to neutralize the myopia. So one is a photorefractive keratectomy, where you are modifying the surface of the cornea by the laser. Another important thing which is actually more advanced and more popular is the laser in situ keratomiliosis. So this is also keratomiliosis, but here we are using the laser. Which laser? Excimer laser, in which a superficial circular flap of epithelium and the stroma is cut with an automated sharp blade called as a microkeratome. So what we are doing, with the help of that microkeratome, we are actually raising that flap, and I told you the minimum this thickness of the flap. So it is 120 to 150 mm thick. It should be at least this much. Then you are left with a stromal bed. So, and second important thing is that that flap should be hinged. This is very, very important. It should be hinged. Do not make the free flap, otherwise it will not be then. And then you are left with that stromal blade, stromal bed. Then what you are doing, then this stromal bed is ablated with a laser which precisely sculpts the cornea to the desired extent. So you require the minimum stromal thickness also. So minimum residual corneal bed thickness is 250 mm. So if I take it as 150 and 250, that makes 150 and 250, at least 400 mm. So that gives you a clue that we require minimum, you know, thickness of the cornea, and if the thickness of the cornea is even less than this to 400 mm, then it will become very, very difficult and risky to do this surgery, because that can lead to the corneal perforation. To maintain the adequate corneal biomechanical stability and prevent the iatrogenic ectasia. Following this, the flap is reposited and remains in place without the sutures. LASIK has advantages because it is giving you quicker visual rehabilitation. We have got clearer vision. Now again, an important thing, why I am getting a clearer vision, because here the Bowman's membrane is not damaged, and the ability to also to correct the higher degrees of refractive error. Now here they are using this knowledge that you should have, that the layers of the cornea. Bowman's layer or the Bowman's membrane is a layer which is responsible for the opacification, because it does not regenerate, it is acellular. So because it is not causing any damage to the Bowman's membrane, that is why we are having sharper vision here. Technological advances to minimize the microkeratome related complications. So for that we are using laser assisted epithelial keratomiliosis. Now there are two important things which have been advancing the LASIK. One is your LASIK and another is epi-LASIK. So we are using this LASIK there because we wanted to reduce the complications which are related to microkeratome, in which you were creating that hinged flap. So here we are using the alcohol to lift a thin flap of epithelium. That is why it is not using the microkeratome. Use of a special microkeratome designed to cut and separate thin flap of epithelium and Bowman's membrane. Then another is the epi-LASIK. So here we are using a special kind where you are just lifting the epithelium so that you are not touching the Bowman's membrane. That can be done. And then afterwards what we are doing, we are using the femtosecond laser to pre-fashion the anterior flap of the desired size, again without using a surgical blade. So all these things are very, very important, and somehow they are working towards reducing the complications which were occurring in the LASIK. Advancements to match the patient's requirements and expectations to lead a spectacle free existence include the measurement of higher order aberrations of the optical system of the eye and use of the wavefront guided or the wavefront guide optimized LASIK to correct and neutralize their effect. Also to yield better visual quality in addition to supervision or eagle eye vision better than 6x6. So even better and better technologies are coming. We are using the wavefront technology, the customized C technology. All these are giving you better and better results day by day. So refractive lens surgery and the surgical correction of the presbyopia are to be dealt now. Refractive lens surgery, like we have already dealt before. So we are moving towards the surgical correction of the presbyopia. So like the other refractive errors, even we have the options for the surgical corrections of the presbyopia. Like I have got the bifocals, we have got the multifocal IOLs that can be implanted after the lens extraction, because when you are extracting the lens we have got loss of accommodation. Then you also have monovision with IOLs with one eye corrected for distance. Now this is also a unique way. We are using the monovision. So one eye is having a monovision for the distance and one eye is having monovision for the near. That kind could be done with. Then we have got the intracorneal inlays which are being inserted in the corneas, and then you also have the laser refractive surgeries like we were doing for the other refractive errors. Finally, we come to the low vision aids. Low vision is a term to signify an impairment of the sight that is not fully correctable. So if the person is having something which is affecting the vision and it's really not totally correctable, then that is a low vision aid, because it is helping the person in improving the vision but not fully correcting it. It is a variety of causes, like we have got the eye injury, diseases and heredity. Low vision could involve a blurring of central vision, the tunnel vision, like this can occur in cases of the macular degeneration, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy and the retinitis pigmentosa. So another important question is that the low vision aids are used in macular degeneration, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy and retinitis pigmentosa. So again an important one. Now low vision aids are available both for reading as well as for the distance vision. For reading purposes, now can you think of, we are giving the handheld magnifiers, and we also have the height adjustable stand magnifiers which are available, because it's not always possible to hold that magnifier in the hand. So we have got like mics are there na, for over the holders, similar kind of hand of the magnifiers are also available. Then you have got the reading telescopes, can be handheld or they can be mounted on the spectacle frames. And the important and the interesting fact is that it is based on the optical principle of Galilean telescope, but the use is difficult. Then we also have the video magnifiers. Okay, they can be fitted over the screens of the computers. Scanners attached to the computer can read printed material through a voice synthesizer. During activities outside the house, visually impaired people are commonly complain of light and glare sensitivity, for which glare reducing and blue blocking lenses provide some relief. So nowadays even cars also have this facility that we have got this blue filtering light, and because glare and this blue light blocking the uh, lenses, they are also this blue light is also creating a problem. So what we are doing, we are introducing those kind of lenses which can reduce the glare, which can block the blue light. Handheld monocular binocular telescopes we have got, and then we also have the spectacle mounted telescopes. These are for your distance vision. So we have got whatever words are there where you have got the telescope, they are for the distant one, and the magnifiers is for the near vision. So obviously if you look at the ophthalmology, there are so many things and so many diseases which are still untreatable, and a lot of research and a lot of work is going on in these fields, but still with the present knowledge and the present scope, we have things called as the low vision aids which can help in the improvement of the vision of these people, but yes, they are not fully treatable as on now. So we have come up to the end of this topic. Refraction is the process of determination of the focusing power of the optical system. This is achieved by the procedure by the retinoscopy. We talked about the autorefractometers, then the refractive power they talked about, and that how can you calculate it from the keratometer, and then we did talk about the retinoscopy, the cycloplegia, and various mydriatics that we used. Then we also saw a number of the refractive errors, that is your ametropia, the myopia, the hypermetropia, the astigmatism. Then we also saw what are the different causes of it, what is aphakia, what is high myopia, what is anisometropia, what is anisoconia, and in aphakia there is total loss of accommodation. So I think this was a long one, a very elaborate one, but very important, especially for two group of people, one who are attending the OPDs, because when you are attending the clinics and all, one important thing that is always a part of ophthalmology is the refraction, and if you are not able to get it now, life becomes so complicated, and every time that same thing is going on. And second thing, when you are doing the internship and you are having the ophthalmology postings, and thirdly for the people who are going to appear for the exam, because nowadays they are asking more and more questions about how to do the things, the practical knowledge, small things they are asking. So I think this is a great effort uh, which this book has taken, and they have tried to explain everything in such a clinical manner, and that is why I like and I'm enjoying teaching Parsons to you people. I hope you people are also enjoying with me. Keep on reading, and you tend to send me so many thank you messages. You tend to send me so many questions related to Parsons series. So see how to approach this series. So if you are a third year student, a pre-final student who has not read ophthalmology not even once. So it is better that you go through the notes first so that you have a concept and then you read the Parsons with me, so that will become easier for you to grasp the things. But if you already have read the ophthalmology once, you have gone through the notes, then you can directly also go for the Parsons series and keep on marking the Parsons along with me. I have taken the latest edition, 23rd edition, so that you can read along with me, and in the final version you will have just the pearls which are noted down in your Parsons, and that will become ultra easy for you to revise the Parson with me. So I hope you keep on learning and bloom ophthalmology like anything, because the session is going long. So we'll discuss chapter number 7 in the next part. Thank you and 7 in the next part. Thank you and happy ophthalmology.